Hey guys, what's up? It's Samantha, and today I'm going to be going over my July TBR. This clip is at my planner desk because I was a complete dodo and accidentally deleted the intro clip to my July TBR, but I just wanted to come on and say hi, hello, and let's jump into the TBR. Alright? Cool. So some of these books that are on my July TBR are ones that I talked about in my June TBR, or are books that I am carrying over from June that I've already started reading, so I'm going to cover those real quickly before I hop into all of the new to July TBR titles. I've already started Felix Ever After by Kacen Callender. This is an Own Voices book about a Black trans main character, Felix, and this book deals with gender identity as well as sexual identity. I believe that Felix identifies as queer, and I am really liking it so far. The characters are definitely very interesting. It takes place in New York City, and there's a lot of art and stuff going on, and how Felix expresses himself through his art. There's also a tense father-son relationship, which I really like. I feel like a lot of YA explores tense mother-daughter relationships, but I don't see as much father-son kind of stuff going on, so I am excited to finish this. I'm also currently listening to Black Girl Unlimited. This is a library book, so that's why the cover is so shiny, but I'm actually finishing this as an audiobook. I had started about the first quarter of this in the physical book a couple months ago, but my hold for the audiobook finally came in. It seems to be in quite high demand in Ohio right now, which makes sense because the author is from Cleveland. So I am really enjoying this. This is part memoir, part magic realism. This is a very hard-hitting book that deals with trauma, grief, racism, poverty, and is so far very, very good. I really like how the magic realism, fantastical elements are used to explore a lot of those harder hitting issues. I am also alternating between audiobook and ebook for The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, which is the second book in the Wheel of Time series, which is an epic high fantasy series that I read the first one too a couple months ago, and I wanted to at least dip my toe into the second book, even if I read this very, very slowly, because I've already forgotten a lot of what happened in the first book other than some of the big plot beats, and I didn't want to have to reread the first one in order to continue the series, so we're just kind of slowly getting through that. And then I am also currently reading my advanced copy of Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power, and I am really liking it so far. The beginning of it actually reminds me a lot of the beginning of The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, and it is dealing with a very tense mother-daughter relationship. The mother's hidden a lot of her past from her daughter, and the daughter is trying to find out more, and I think it's going to involve them going to visit the grandma and learning more about the mom's past. Other advanced copies from June that I'm carrying over into July are The Obsidian Tower by Melissa Caruso. I feel really bad because this came out almost a month ago and I still haven't gotten to it, but I would really like to get to it this month. And then I am also going to be reading all of my July 7th arcs that come out real quick here because today's July 1st in the next week. So the books that I need to finish this week are Cinderella is Dead by Kalynn Bayron, and I talked about this last month. This is a female-female romance Cinderella retelling taking place 100 years after the original Cinderella story, and I think it's a very strong female character, feminist-oriented fairy tale retelling, so I'm excited to try this out. The sequel to The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh, The Damned, comes out on the 7th as well, and I would like to reread The Beautiful before I read The Damned because I don't remember a lot of the details from this book. I did really enjoy it when I read it last year. It's angsty, dark, highly entertaining YA fantasy set in the 1800s in New Orleans, and I am very excited to read the sequel. I had so much fun reading this last year, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I haven't read anything else by Renee Ahdieh that I've liked, and I really enjoyed this, was highly entertained, and I'm hoping that The Damned brings just a little more things that go bump in the night, a little more monsters, a little more fantasy, more vampires. So I'm looking forward to reading these this week. I also have an arc of The Princess Will Save You Now by Sarah Henning, which is a gender-swapped Princess Bride retelling. I have heard kind of mixed reviews about this one, but I'm willing to give it a go, especially because I have an arc of it. I might end up DNFing it if I don't like it, but I'm intrigued enough, and also it's another Charlie Bowater cover. There's so many Charlie Bowater covers this summer, so that is something I'd also like to at least start this week. Carrying over books from my June TBR, I still want to read Well Met by Jen Deluca. I want to continue my Lord of the Rings reread with Two Towers. And even if it's the only book I read this month, I have to read Priory of the Orange Tree. This book is haunting me. It has been on my TBR every month for almost a year. I just need to suck it up and read it. So someone call me out. If I don't finish this by the end of July, I have to read this book. So in terms of advanced copies that I want to get to this month that I didn't have on my June TBR, I want to read Axiom's End by Lindsey Ellis. This comes out later this month, and Lindsey Ellis is one of my favorite YouTubers of all time. I love her video essays, so I'm really hoping that her writing there translates into this novel. It's a sci-fi novel. I think it takes place in 2004, 2005, and it deals with first contact with aliens, and I really like Lindsey Ellis's humor. She jives with me, so I'm hoping that this is like has that kind of trademark Lindsey Ellis humor, and I haven't read like sci-fi in a really long time, and I usually, or at least in the past, I've read a lot of adult sci-fi, and I haven't really read any adult sci-fi this year. I can't remember if Leviathan Wakes was this year or last year because it all blends together, but I haven't read a lot, so I'm excited to read this. Continuing the adult sci-fi arc pattern, I also have an advanced copy of To Sleep in the Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. I was a huge Aragon fan when those books were coming out. I was the right age for them the whole way through. I read them throughout the 2000s. I think the last one came out when I was a sophomore in college, sophomore or junior. I can't remember, but I loved those books so much, and obviously now as an adult I like see the problems with them and how there were a lot of things that were kind of copied from other authors, but he was known for writing those as a teenager, and I'm excited to see how he's grown and developed as an author, writing as an adult, and then also what his adult material looks like, so I'm very excited to give this a go. I also have a few YA arcs that I want to read this month. I have Smashed by Francina Simone, which I got as soon as it went up on NetGalley. Francina was actually the first booktuber that I found and the first booktuber that I watched, the only booktuber I watched for about 6 months, so I am really excited to read this. I've had it for months and I really just want to get to it early because I've heard such good things about it, and I love Francina so much and I want to be able to hype up this book as much as possible. I'm really hoping that it lives up to the hype that I filled up for myself, so looking forward to reading that this month. And then I also have an arc of Kind of a Big Deal by Shannon Hale. I'm actually reading this for work because Shannon Hale is a really popular middle grade, a little into YA author, and we weren't sure how many copies to order of this, so I'm going to read it to tell our collection development person how many copies, if she should order a lot or if it's like meh, because we've read some kind of middling reviews of it, so I'm going to be the person who gives the input on that because she wasn't sure what to do, especially just because Shannon Hale has been such a popular author in the past few years. I also would like to read The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen, which was my favorite YA fantasy book of last year because I have an arc of the sequel, The Faithless Hawk. This was originally slated to come out in July, but I guess there were production issues. I mean, the sequel was slated to come out in July, but production issues with the Faithless Hawk. It's now coming out, I believe, August 12th, so I got a little bit of a grace period. I'll probably be reading these more towards the end of the month rather than the beginning since it doesn't come out, the sequel doesn't come out until August, but I'm very excited. I've heard rave reviews of the sequel. I've also been sitting on the arc of this for way too long. I requested too many arcs this year, so I'm very excited to finally be getting into this one. With all of the arcs I have coming out, I've finally accepted that I am not going to be reading the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin this month. I do not need to start another fantasy series, but I do want to start her new urban fantasy series. The first one is The City We Became, and this takes place in New York City, and I am very excited to get into this, and plus there's only one of them so far, so it's just committing me to one book for right now, but I am very excited to read this. I've heard awesome reviews of this. Apparently all of the boroughs of New York City are manifested into different individuals living in New York City, and I'm really excited to sink my teeth into an N.K. Jemisin, and also this cover is awesome, and I don't know if you can tell, but there's like the tentacles on there are so spooky and cool. The last book that I want to read this month is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is an adult romance that I've heard so much about, and I can't believe I haven't read it yet. It sounds like it's going to be something that'll be right up my alley, and I definitely want to make a point to read more adult romance books by Black authors since I feel like they tend to be neglected in that space, but I've already had my eye on this book. It's been on my TBR, like on my radar for months. I haven't been reading as much adult romance the past couple months because I've been reading so much adult fantasy. So I'm looking forward to reading this as well this month. All right, guys, so that is everything that I want to read in July. It's a pretty massive list, but I think I can get through most of it. So wish me luck. Make sure you're following me on Instagram and Goodreads if you're not already, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.